There's a moment when you realize that the difference between you and a billionaire isn't just money, it's something far more fundamental. It's how they think, how they process information, how they make decisions, how they view problems, opportunities, and other people. And here's what most people never understand. You can develop this mindset long before you develop the bank account. Most people believe that wealth creates the mindset. They think that once you have money, you naturally start thinking differently. But Machiavelli, who studied power and wealth for decades, understood the opposite was true. The mindset creates the wealth. The thinking patterns come first. The financial results follow. Here's what's fascinating about billionaire psychology. It's not about being smarter, more educated, or even more talented than everyone else. Some of the wealthiest people in history were college dropouts, came from poverty, or failed multiple times before succeeding. What separated them wasn't their circumstances. It was their mental operating system. They think in systems, while others think in events. They see opportunities, while others see problems. They focus on what they can control, while others obsess over what they can't. They make decisions based on logic, while others are driven by emotion. They think long-term, while others live day to day. But here's the revolutionary part. These thinking patterns can be learned, practiced, and internalized by anyone, regardless of their current financial situation. You don't need capital to think like a capitalist. You don't need wealth to develop wealth consciousness. You don't need money to start operating with the mental frameworks that create money. Today, you're going to learn the specific thought patterns, decision-making processes, and mental models that billionaires use to navigate the world. Not the motivational fluff or the surface-level advice, but the actual cognitive frameworks that separate those who accumulate massive wealth from those who struggle financially their entire lives. Because when you change how you think, you change what you attract. The first and most crucial difference between billionaire thinking and average thinking is this. Billionaires see systems where others see events. When something happens, good or bad, most people focus on the event itself. Billionaires focus on the system that created the event. Machiavelli understood this principle. When he studied successful rulers, he noticed that mediocre princes reacted to individual crises as they arose, constantly putting out fires. But great rulers identified the underlying systems that created those crises and modified the systems themselves, preventing future problems before they occurred. Here's what this looks like in practice. When an average person loses money in the stock market, they focus on the event. The market crashed. My stock went down. I lost money. A billionaire looks at the same situation and asks different questions. What system led me to make that investment decision? What patterns in market behavior did I miss? How can I modify my decision-making process to handle similar situations better? The event trap. Most people live in what I call event consciousness. They see their life as a series of random things happening to them. They got fired, they got promoted, they met someone, they lost someone, they made money, they lost money. Each event feels separate and unpredictable. This creates a victim mindset because events feel outside of your control. You're constantly reacting to circumstances rather than creating them. You become dependent on luck, timing, and other people's decisions for your success. The system's advantage. Billionaires operate from systems consciousness. They understand that events are just the visible outcomes of invisible systems. Instead of focusing on what happened, they focus on why it happened and how they can influence the underlying mechanics. When Jeff Bezos started Amazon, he wasn't thinking about selling books online, the event. He was thinking about building a system that could sell anything online efficiently. When Warren Buffett buys a stock, he's not betting on the event of that stock going up. He's betting on the system, the company's competitive advantages, management quality, and market position. Practical application. Start asking different questions. Instead of, why did this happen to me? Ask, what system produced this result? Instead of, How do I solve this problem? Ask, how do I create a system that prevents this type of problem? Instead of, how do I make money? Ask, what system can I build that generates money consistently? This shift in thinking is profound because systems compound over time while events are singular. When you build a good system, it produces beneficial events repeatedly. When you only focus on events, you have to start over every time. Billionaires get rich because they build systems that work for them even when they're sleeping. Average people stay average because they trade time for money and individual events. The second billionaire mindset shift is how they process challenges. Where most people see problems, billionaires see opportunities. This isn't positive thinking or motivational nonsense. It's a completely different cognitive framework for processing information. Machiavelli observed this pattern in the most successful political leaders of his time. While weaker rulers became paralyzed by difficulties and focused on what was going wrong, powerful leaders immediately began asking, how can this situation be turned to my advantage? They saw crisis as the raw material for opportunity. The problem fixation. Most people have been trained to be problem-focused. When something goes wrong, they analyze what's broken, who's to blame, and why it's unfair. They spend enormous mental energy on the negative aspects of their situation. This creates a psychological trap where their attention is constantly drawn to what they don't want. This problem-focused thinking creates problem-focused results. When your brain is scanning for what's wrong, that's what you'll find. When your energy is devoted to complaining about obstacles, you have no energy left for creating solutions. The opportunity lens. Billionaires have trained themselves to automatically scan for opportunity in every situation. When they encounter a problem, their first question isn't, why is this happening? But how can I profit from this? They understand that every problem someone is willing to pay to solve represents a business opportunity. During the 2008 financial crisis, most people saw disaster. Billionaires, like Warren Buffett, saw the opportunity to buy quality companies at discount prices. During COVID-19, most people saw economic devastation. Entrepreneurs saw opportunities in remote work technology, delivery services, and digital transformation. The pain to profit formula. Billionaires understand that pain points are profit points. The bigger the problem, the bigger the potential opportunity. They actively seek out industries and situations where people are frustrated, inefficient, or paying too much for poor solutions. Jeff Bezos saw that book buying was inconvenient and limited. Elon Musk saw that car buying was painful and gas cars were polluting. Sarah Blakely saw that women's undergarments were uncomfortable and unflattering. The third billionaire mindset distinction is time horizon. Most people think in days, weeks, or months. Billionaires think in years, decades, and generations. This difference in time perspective completely changes how they make decisions, what they prioritize, and what they're willing to sacrifice today for future gains. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the importance of long-term strategic thinking. He observed that rulers who made decisions based on immediate pressures rarely maintained power, while those who planned for distant consequences built lasting empires. The ability to delay gratification and think beyond the present moment was the mark of true leadership. The instant gratification trap. Modern society has trained most people to think short-term. They want quick results, immediate rewards, and instant solutions. This creates a decision-making framework based on what feels good right now, rather than what leads to the best outcomes over time. Short-term thinking leads to debt instead of savings, consumption instead of investment, reaction instead of preparation. People make choices that optimize for today's comfort at the expense of tomorrow's success. They buy things they can't afford, take jobs that pay well but lead nowhere, and avoid difficult tasks that would pay off later. The compound advantage. Billionaires understand that small actions compound over time into massive results. They're willing to make decisions that seem suboptimal in the short term, but create exponential benefits over years and decades. Warren Buffett has held some stocks for over 50 years because he thinks in terms of business fundamentals over decades, not stock price movements over months. Jeff Bezos sacrificed Amazon's profitability for years to build market dominance and infrastructure that would pay off massively later. Elon Musk invested everything into SpaceX and Tesla when both companies nearly failed because he believed in their long-term potential. The 10-year question. Billionaires regularly ask themselves, what decision would my future self thank me for making today? They evaluate choices based on where they want to be in 10 years, not where they are right now. This perspective allows them to make difficult decisions that create future leverage. Instead of asking, what's the quickest way to make money? They ask, what skills, relationships, or assets can I build now that will compound over time? Instead of optimizing for this quarter's results, they optimize for next decade's position. Practical implementation. Start extending your decision-making time horizon. Before making significant choices, ask, how will this affect me in 5 years? In 10 years, begin viewing temporary discomfort as the price of permanent improvement. Choose growth over comfort, investment over consumption, building over spending. This shift requires rewiring your reward system. Instead of seeking immediate validation, learn to find satisfaction and progress toward long-term goals. Instead of measuring success by monthly income, measure it by the assets and systems you're building for future wealth creation. Time is the billionaire's secret weapon. They use it while others waste it. The fourth billionaire mindset shift is how they categorize everything in their life. Most people think in terms of things I want and things I need. Billionaires think in terms of assets that make me money, liabilities that cost me money. This simple mental framework completely transforms how they make purchasing decisions and where they direct their resources. Machiavelli understood this principle in political terms. He distinguished between investments that strengthened a ruler's position versus expenses that merely maintained appearances. The wise prince built assets, loyal armies, strategic alliances, productive territories. The foolish prince accumulated liabilities, expensive courts, costly wars, borrowed money for consumption. The consumer mindset. Most people have been trained to think like consumers. They evaluate purchases based on desire, social status, or immediate utility. I want this car because it's beautiful. I need this house because it's impressive. I deserve this vacation because I work hard. This consumer thinking creates a lifetime of converting money into things that lose value over time. The average person's financial life is dominated by liabilities disguised as necessities, car payments, credit card debt, expensive housing relative to income, and endless consumption of depreciating goods. The investor mindset. Billionaires think like investors first, consumers second. Before buying anything significant, they ask, will this make me money or cost me money over time? They understand that every dollar spent on a liability is a dollar not invested in an asset that could compound and generate wealth. When a billionaire buys a house, they're thinking about appreciation potential, tax advantages, and whether they could rent it profitably. When they buy a car, they consider depreciation, maintenance costs, and opportunity cost of the capital. When they spend money on anything, they calculate what that money could have earned if invested instead. The cash flow test. The simplest way to think like a billionaire is to apply the cash flow test to every significant purchase. Ask yourself, 6 months after buying this, will it be putting money in my pocket or taking money out of my pocket? A rental property that generates positive cash flow is an asset. An expensive car with payments, insurance, and maintenance costs is a liability. Education that increases your earning potential is an asset. Expensive clothes that don't impact your income are liabilities. Practical application. Start reframing your financial decisions. Before any major purchase, pause and ask, is this an asset or a liability? Could this money be better used to acquire something that appreciates or generates income? This doesn't mean living like a monk or never enjoying anything. It means being intentional about the ratio of assets to liabilities in your life. Billionaires maximize assets and minimize liabilities. Average people do the opposite. The wealthy get wealthier because they turn money into things that make more money. The poor stay poor because they turn money into things that cost more money. The fifth billionaire mindset distinction is how they approach getting results. Most people think linearly. If they want twice the results, they need to work twice as hard. Billionaires think in terms of leverage. How can they multiply their efforts through other people's time, money, skills, and resources? Machiavelli understood leverage as the cornerstone of power. He observed that the most successful rulers didn't personally fight every battle or handle every decision. Instead, they built systems where their single commands could mobilize thousands of people and vast resources. Their power was multiplied through organizational leverage, the linear trap. Most people are stuck in linear thinking. They trade time for money on a one-to-one basis. Work 1 hour, get paid for 1 hour. Want more money? Work more hours. This creates a ceiling on their potential because there are only 24 hours in a day. Linear thinkers try to solve problems by working harder, staying later, taking on more tasks themselves. They become bottlenecks in their own success because everything depends on their personal time and energy. When they stop working, the money stops flowing. The leverage advantage. Billionaires understand that true wealth comes from multiplication, not addition. They constantly ask, how can I get this result without doing the work myself? They look for ways to amplify their efforts through systems, people, technology, and capital. Warren Buffett doesn't research every investment personally. He has teams of analysts. Jeff Bezos doesn't pack Amazon boxes. He built systems where millions of people handle fulfillment. Elon Musk doesn't build every Tesla. He created manufacturing systems that produce thousands of cars with minimal personal involvement. The 4 types of leverage. Billionaires master 4 forms of leverage. First, people leverage, hiring others to execute while you focus on strategy. Second, capital leverage, using other people's money to fund growth. Third, technology leverage, building systems that work automatically. Fourth, media leverage, creating content or brands that reach millions without additional effort. Practical implementation. Start thinking in multiplication rather than addition. Instead of asking, how can I work harder? Ask, how can I work smarter? Instead of, how can I do more? Ask, how can I get this done without doing it myself? Look for opportunities to create leverage in your current situation. Can you automate repetitive tasks? Can you delegate responsibilities? Can you create systems that work without your constant supervision? Can you build something once that benefits you repeatedly? The goal is to transition from being paid for your time to being paid for your results, and ultimately, to being paid for systems that produce results without your direct involvement. Billionaires get rich by making money while they sleep. You can't do that with linear thinking. You need leverage. The 6th billionaire mindset shift is how they approach risk. Most people are risk-averse. They avoid uncertainty and potential loss at all costs. Billionaires are risk-intelligent. They systematically evaluate, calculate, and take strategic risks that others won't take because the potential rewards justify the potential losses. Machiavelli wrote that fortune favors the bold, but he also emphasized that boldness must be calculated. The successful prince took risks that weak rulers avoided, but these weren't reckless gambles. They were strategic moves based on careful analysis of potential outcomes and acceptable losses. The safety illusion. Most people believe that avoiding risk is safe. They choose the secure job, the safe investment, the guaranteed path. But this creates the biggest risk of all, the risk of mediocrity, the risk of inflation eroding their purchasing power, and the risk of being left behind while others advance. Risk-averse thinking leads to risk-averse results. When you avoid all possibility of loss, you also avoid all possibility of significant gain. The person who never risks losing money rarely makes substantial money. The person who never risks failure rarely achieves breakthrough success. The risk intelligence framework. Billionaires don't avoid risk. They manage it intelligently. They understand that the biggest risk is not taking any risks in a world that's rapidly changing. They develop systems for evaluating which risks are worth taking and how to minimize potential downsides while maximizing potential upsides. When Jeff Bezos left his high-paying Wall Street job to start Amazon, he used what he called the regret minimization framework. He imagined himself at 80 years old looking back and asked which choice he'd regret more, trying and failing, or never trying at all. The risk of regret outweighed the risk of failure. Asymmetric risk. Taking billionaires look for asymmetric risks, situations where the potential upside far exceeds the potential downside. They're willing to risk losing a small amount for the chance to gain a massive amount. They understand that you only need to be right once in a big way to offset many small losses. Venture capitalists embody this thinking. They know that 9 out of 10 investments might fail, but the one success could return 100x their investment, making the overall portfolio profitable despite the failures. Practical risk intelligence. Start reframing risk in your own life. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if I don't try?" Instead of focusing on what you could lose, focus on what you could gain. Instead of avoiding all uncertainty, learn to calculate which uncertainties are worth embracing. The goal isn't to become reckless, but to become strategically bold. Take risks that could change your life, while avoiding risks that could destroy it. The safe path feels secure, but leads to insecurity. The calculated risk path feels uncertain, but leads to extraordinary outcomes. The 7th billionaire mindset distinction is how they view relationships and connections. Most people think individually. They focus on their own skills, their own efforts, their own achievements. Billionaires think in networks. They understand that your net worth is directly connected to your network, and they strategically build relationships that multiply their capabilities. Machiavelli devoted entire chapters to the importance of alliances and strategic relationships. He understood that even the most capable ruler couldn't succeed in isolation. Power came not just from personal strength, but from the ability to coordinate and leverage the strengths of others through carefully cultivated networks. The solo operator trap. Most people operate as if success is an individual sport. They believe that if they just work hard enough, learn enough skills, and perform well enough, they'll achieve their goals. This creates a ceiling on their potential because they're limited by their own personal capabilities and hours in the day. Individual thinkers often avoid networking because they see it as superficial or manipulative. They prefer to let their work speak for itself. But this approach ignores the reality that in a connected world, the best opportunities, partnerships, and resources flow through relationships, not job boards or advertisements. The network multiplier effect. Billionaires understand that relationships are force multipliers. One conversation with the right person can accomplish more than months of individual effort. One introduction can open doors that no amount of personal qualifications could unlock. One partnership can provide resources that would take years to build independently. Warren Buffett's partnership with Charlie Munger didn't just double his thinking power, it multiplied it exponentially because their different perspectives and expertise created insights neither could achieve alone. Mark Zuckerberg's early relationships with investors, advisors, and key employees were as crucial to Facebook's success as his programming skills. Strategic relationship building. Billionaires don't network randomly, they network strategically. They identify the types of people who could help them achieve their goals, and then find ways to provide value to those people. First, they understand that the strongest networks are built on mutual benefit, not one-sided extraction. They also think long-term about relationships. They maintain connections, even when there's no immediate benefit, because they understand that today's acquaintance could become tomorrow's crucial partner, investor, or customer. Practical network development. Start viewing every interaction as a potential long-term relationship. Focus on how you can help others before thinking about how they can help you. Be genuinely interested in other people's goals and challenges. Follow up consistently and add value wherever possible. Remember that networking isn't about collecting business cards or LinkedIn connections. It's about building genuine relationships where mutual value can be created and exchanged over time. Your network determines your access to opportunities, resources, knowledge, and influence. Billionaires understand this and invest in relationships as seriously as they invest in any other asset. The eighth billionaire mindset shift is how they view resources and opportunities. Most people operate from scarcity. They believe there's not enough money, opportunities, or success to go around. Billionaires operate from abundance. They believe that wealth can be created infinitely, and that helping others succeed often increases their own success. Machiavelli observed this pattern in the most successful rulers, those who governed from fear of losing what they had made defensive, paranoid decisions that often led to their downfall. But rulers who governed from abundance, who believed they could create more wealth and power, made expansive decisions that actually increased their resources and influence. The scarcity prison, scarcity thinking, creates a competitive, zero-sum mindset. People believe that if someone else gets promoted, there's less chance for their promotion. If someone else makes money, there's less money available for them. If someone else succeeds, it somehow diminishes their own potential for success. This mindset leads to hoarding behaviors, reluctance to share information or opportunities, and viewing other successful people as threats rather than potential allies. Scarcity thinkers often sabotage others because they believe others' failure increases their own chances of success. The abundance advantage. Billionaires understand that wealth is not a fixed pie. It can be expanded infinitely. When Henry Ford made cars affordable for the masses, he didn't take money away from other people. He created new wealth by making transportation more efficient and accessible. When Bill Gates made software ubiquitous, he didn't steal from others. He created massive new value that benefited millions. Abundance thinking leads to collaboration instead of competition, sharing instead of hoarding, and creating value instead of extracting it. Billionaires often become wealthier by making others wealthy because they understand that rising tides lift all boats. The value creation mindset. Instead of fighting over existing resources, billionaires focus on creating new resources. Instead of competing for a bigger slice of the pie, they focus on making the pie bigger. They ask, how can I create value that benefits everyone involved? This is why many billionaires are generous philanthropists. They understand that their wealth comes from creating value for society, and giving back often creates even more opportunities for wealth creation. Warren Buffett's giving pledge isn't just altruism, it's abundance thinking in action. Practical abundance training. Start looking for ways to create win-win situations instead of zero-sum competitions. When you help others succeed, look for how their success might benefit you as well. Share opportunities, knowledge, and connections freely, trusting that abundance will return to you in various forms. Celebrate others' successes instead of feeling threatened by them. Use successful people as inspiration and learning opportunities rather than reasons for resentment or comparison. Scarcity creates poverty. Abundance creates wealth. The mindset you choose determines which reality you experience. Now comes the most crucial part: transforming these insights from intellectual understanding into practical reality. Knowing how billionaires think means nothing if you don't rewire your own mental operating system. This transformation requires deliberate practice, conscious effort, and systematic integration of new thought patterns into your daily decision-making. Machiavelli understood that knowledge without application was worthless. He wrote his principles not for academic study, but for practical implementation by those who wanted real power and influence. The gap between knowing and doing is where most people fail, but it's also where the greatest opportunities for transformation exist. The 30-day mental rewiring challenge. Start with one mindset shift per week. Week 1. Practice systems thinking by asking what system created this result instead of focusing on individual events. Week 2, train opportunity recognition by finding 3 potential opportunities in every problem you encounter. Week 3, apply the 10-year question to every significant decision. Week 4, use the asset vs liability test before any major purchase. Daily mental exercises. Each morning, spend 5 minutes reviewing your goals through each billionaire mindset filter. Ask yourself, what systems can I build today? What opportunities am I missing? How does this serve my 10-year vision? Is this an asset or liability? How can I leverage others' resources? What risks should I take? Who should I connect with? How can I create abundance? Decision-making transformation. Before making any significant choice, run it through the billionaire thinking framework. Instead of deciding based on comfort, convenience, or immediate gratification, decide based on long-term wealth creation, opportunity potential, and strategic value. This doesn't mean becoming cold or calculating. It means becoming intentional and strategic about choices that affect your financial future. You can still enjoy life while thinking like someone who creates wealth, rather than someone who merely consumes it. The identity shift. The most powerful change happens when you begin to see yourself differently. Instead of "I'm someone trying to make money," think "I'm someone who creates value and wealth." Naturally flows from that creation. Instead of "I can't afford this," think "how can I increase my value creation to afford this?" Measuring progress. Track your thinking patterns, not just your financial results. Notice when you slip back into event-focused, problem-focused, short-term, liability accumulating, linear, risk-averse, individual, or scarcity-based thinking. The goal is to catch these patterns faster and redirect them toward billionaire thinking. Remember, you don't need money to think like a billionaire. You need billionaire thinking to create money. These mental frameworks are free, but they're also priceless. They're the difference between a lifetime of financial struggle and a lifetime of wealth creation. Start thinking like a billionaire today. Your bank account will follow tomorrow.